Back around 2010 and 2011, when websites like Chatroulette were popular, my friends and I would sometimes mess around with people on our webcam. The website usually peaked on weekend nights, and when we were like 14, we didn't really do much on weekend nights. So I had my friend Peter over, and we hopped on Chatroulette. It was just my mom home, so we went upstairs with the laptop where we could be as loud as we wanted. We acted like two idiotic 14-year-olds, basically being mean and rude to anyone we saw. So basically on Chatroulette, you'd press go and it would match you with someone else, anyone else using their webcam. Some girl who appeared to be a couple years older than us popped up. Her camera quality wasn't the best, and she was sitting in a dark room with a blue light filling a decent amount of it. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty tiny details over what Peter and I said to her, but we acted like douchey, mean teenage boys to be frank. Then Peter said, "Who is that behind you?" I suddenly looked beyond the girl to see what he was talking about. I didn't see anyone, so I caught on that he was joking. She seemed to know he was messing with her right away too, saying something along the lines of us being little dweebs. Peter insisted to the girl he was being serious, and I played along with it. The girl turned around, and like the two of us, she didn't see anyone behind her. All I could see behind her was the rest of the room, which appeared to be a mess, and her bed tucked in the corner of the room. Peter said there was someone hiding behind her bed. I looked at Peter, trying to hold in the laughter and make it seem like I was seeing what he was seeing too. Then I finally noticed someone in the background, by the back wall of the girl's room. He was coming out from behind the bed, seemingly trying to be inconspicuous. My smile disappeared as I then realized Peter wasn't joking around. I started telling her that someone was actually sneaking up behind her. Realistically, I assumed it was her brother or something messing with her, trying to scare her. So I said that. I said, "It looks like your brother is trying to scare you." She finally turned around, and her reaction was not what I was expecting at all. She screamed at the top of her lungs and jumped back out from her chair onto the desk, crawling backwards while frantically kicking her feet at the person approaching her. We could hear the sounds of books and other items falling from her desk as she kicked and screamed. Her webcam started to shake, as all we could see of her was her legs. The person in her room got in arm's reach of her, and now we could see a black mask over his face. He grabbed the girl and kept screaming, "Shut up," and her screams only got worse. Peter and I were silent now, simply staring, not knowing what to make of this. The man then looked into the webcam from behind his black mask for a second, and a few seconds later, the screen went dark, and we connected to another random person. Peter and I looked at each other. We closed out from the website and sat there to talk and take that in for a second. We agreed it was possible it could have been a prank. A lot of people on YouTube at the time played pranks on people on Chatroulette to get some crazy reactions. But it looked real. Almost too real to be a performance. Well, a few days later, I got a text from Peter. It was a link to a news article about a teenage girl who had been murdered while home alone a few days back. We told our parents because we wanted to be able to give a description of what happened to the police. So our parents coordinated a time for us to sit down with the two investigators to explain everything we saw. We said we were on Chatroulette with a blonde girl who looked either 16 or 17, and that some average-sized looking man wearing a black ski mask emerged from a back corner of her room and started to attack her on camera, but only for so long until he turned off the computer. We gave the best description we could. Whether they believed us or not, or whether the information helped or not, was something we honestly never found out.
Prepare to think bigger. Gain real-world experience. Start your journey. Are you ready? It's time for bigger goals. Duquesne.
One winter night when I was 17, I came up with a brilliant idea of exploring the deep web after hearing all the craze about it. Everybody and their mother was claiming how the deep web was some dangerous, crazy part of the internet that nobody should ever go to. Others said these people didn't know what they were talking about, and that the deep web is actually extremely boring and uninteresting. I wanted to do some browsing out of curiosity. I needed to download a special web browser called Tor, which allowed you to visit websites ending with the .onion domain. When I had the browser, I didn't know where or how to start, so I googled where to start on the deep web, and that gave me a page full of archived links to the deep web. The page scrolled down forever. There must have been thousands of links. I finally decided to click on one. It was a .onion link that led to another archive of links. It took a while to load, but there I was, on another page of probably thousands of links. Only the background to this page was now black, and the links were red. I scrolled down until I found a link to a chat room. This also took forever to load, but I think it was called Backdoor Fire Chat or something. I put in a quick username, ABC1234, and I was entered into the chat. There appeared to be only 3 people in the chat, but messages from hours, even days before, were still in the chat log. Most of the messages people left were links. Hardly anyone had been saying what the links led to, though. One of the other users, whose username was something ominous like username 157 or something, said something directed to me. He asked what I was looking for. I thought for a second, then typed out, "I'm looking for the darker part of the deep web." He didn't say anything for a minute. Then he posted a link. He didn't say what the link was to, so I asked. I waited another minute for him to respond, but instead he apparently signed out from the chat so that it was just me and one other person. So I clicked on the link, and I swear it had to have taken at least 2 minutes for the page to finally load. It was an unlabeled website with a black background and a banner at top with a picture of a living room with a red satanic symbol drawn on the table. All the text seemed to be written in some weird language. It seemed to be Hebrew characters. There were also a bunch of buttons, also written in whatever language this was, at the top of the page. I clicked one of the middle buttons, and after a long loading time, a black chat room took over the screen. Messages with more of the Hebrew or whatever language filled the chat room. In one of the messages, though, 2 words stuck out that were written in text I could actually read. The words were my first and last name. I tried to exit the chat, but my mouse started to lag. Then the other user in the chat room posted a picture of my face. It was clearly taken just now through my webcam. Then he sent another and another. Constant pictures showing my horrified face basically frame by frame. I tried moving the mouse and clicking out of the browser, but it was frozen, and my computer just kept making the error noise as more messages I couldn't read were sent, as well as more pictures of my face. I pressed down the power button on the laptop for like 10 seconds, and it finally turned off. Even turning off the laptop seemed to take longer than usual. My heart was still racing though, and I still had goosebumps. I left my computer off for 12 hours and put a post-it note over my webcam from there on. I also deleted Tor and never visited the dark web again. Remember that little feature on the original Nintendo DS called PictoChat? It was like a little chat room you could join with anyone else using a DS within a certain range. My house is right down the block from the town street in our neighborhood, what with all the pubs and festivities and such. When I was 12, the Nintendo DS was really in its prime, especially the Pokemon games. There was a spot in town down the block from me, tucked between a couple stores with a few benches that I'd walk to all the time to meet up with my friend Carl, so that we could battle in Pokemon usually. Actually, it was a spot where a lot of kids would be walking around with their DSs. One night, instead of playing Pokemon, Carl and I were just messing around on the PictoChat feature, sending each other inappropriate pictures and dumb messages, laughing our asses off. I remember taking note of how much the leaves were starting to sway nearby, how the wind was apparently starting to pick up. Then, we both got the ding that would sound when someone else would enter the chat. It also said on the screen, "Now entering, Joe." Carl and I looked up at each other, smiling, because it was funny but weird that someone else had joined. We looked around our immediate surroundings, in that little square between buildings that we were sitting in, but it was a little dark to see anything outside of the light hanging from the side of one of the buildings, so we went along with it. I wrote "Hey Joe" with my stylus. He responded back with keyboard text saying "Hey." So Carl wrote with his stylus, "Where are you?" Joe sent back a message in more keyboard text, saying "I see you." Carl and I looked up at each other once again, since it was obviously a strange thing for him to say. We looked around again. Joe sent another message saying, "You guys come here a lot, don't you?" I wrote back this time using the keyboard instead of free draw, saying, "Yeah, who are you and where are you?" Then, this Joe person sent a picture. It was some squiggly, fluffy looking object. My first guess was that it was a cloud. I typed back, "Is that a cloud?" Joe said, "No, guess again." I typed back, "Why?" He typed back, "It's where I'm hiding." For the third time, Carl and I exchanged glances. Carl screamed out finally, "Who's out there?" I looked back down at the DS and saw another picture from Joe. It was similar to his last picture, but more detailed. I sent my second guess. "Is it a bush?" I said. Then I heard a chuckle. It sounded like right on top of me. I knew Carl heard it too, because we once again looked at one another. But then, I saw his eyes focus on something behind me. I turned and saw some guy slowly standing up from a big bush that sat behind my bench. He towered over me, and as he looked down at me, he had on a very wide smile. I remember his teeth were small and his gums took up most of his smile. Then he put both his hands on my shoulders, not in a gentle way. He grabbed my shoulders and squeezed them with a tight grip, and I screamed. Carl and I ran for our bikes, and as I initially started to pedal, desperately trying to pick up speed, I heard the clonking of the man's footsteps behind us. Thankfully, we picked up enough speed and got back into public view on the road, and only then did I look back. The man wasn't following us. We went straight to my house and told my mom and dad, who forbid me from going to town alone at night anymore. They called Carl's parents to recommend they do the same to their son. Even if they hadn't put that restriction on me, there's no way I would have ever gone back to that spot at night. It actually freaks me out to wonder how many times that guy had to have watched us on our DS's to have known when to come, and with one of his own. This video was captured by a Reddit user's doorbell camera. He claims to have woken up to his dog going crazy outside, followed by a notification from the app Ring, saying motion was detected at his door. Upon opening the app, he's greeted to nothing but an eyeball looking directly into his camera, and a man whispering and mumbling to himself. He proceeds to knock and ring the doorbell. He then begins trying his luck at the doorknob and window, all the while still mumbling and whispering to himself. After the homeowner threatens to call the police, the man gets defensive and claims he was just looking for his dog, conveniently named Fido.
Okay, I was just looking for my dog, Fido. Whoa, you don't have to get all like that and stuff, honey. You know, we could be friends.
In this video, we see a man seemingly waiting to be let into a house. Whether it's his house or not is unknown. As he waits by the door, a strange animal-like transparent figure can be seen floating towards the door, and as it reaches and passes the man, he turns, possibly reacting to a sound he may have heard. These are two clips that were likely taken back during the entire clown epidemic of 2016. In this first clip, we see someone dressed as a clown wielding a small sword, lurking around by the front door for a bit and running off after ringing the doorbell. Similarly, in this next clip, someone dressed as a clown can be seen standing in the distance, looking at the front door. After a while, he approaches the door, seems to stare into the doorbell camera for a few seconds, then walks away. Whether these were pranks meant to scare the homeowners or not, most people wouldn't want to open their doors to these two. In this video, around 2 p.m., the man in the dark hoodie seen here apparently rang the doorbell and no one answered. The man who lives in this house was wearing headphones, therefore couldn't hear the doorbell. So the man in the hoodie likely presumed no one was home and soon returned with his friend in the white hoodie around 15 minutes later. The man in the dark hoodie attempts to kick in the door while his friend in the white hoodie stands by. The man who owns the house is able to hear the loud bangs of the attempted burglar's foot hitting the door, and he yells out something unintelligible that scares the two men off. In this video, the camera catches a shirtless man approaching the door, but instead of actually ringing the bell or knocking on the door, he pretends to knock on the door. What you can't see on the screen is a car that's waiting for the man in front of the house. According to the homeowner, he could be seen talking to someone waiting in the car off camera later on. It's likely that the shirtless man was forced to do something by the person in the car, clearly something that he doesn't want to do given that he fakes an entire conversation with the homeowner, all the while checking to make sure the person in the car could see him talking.
Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry.
It was apparent he or the person in the car were looking for a person named Matt, who they thought lived in this house. One could only imagine what this man was put out to do to this mad person. In this video, the doorbell camera detects motion, but seemingly nothing appears in the frame, except for a small, white orb that floats across the screen. Some paranormal investigators have referred to orbs appearing in pictures and videos from allegedly paranormal sources. Apparently, the orb in this video is significant enough to trip the motion sensors of the camera system. This one isn't a video, but rather a pretty disturbing picture caught by a Redditor's doorbell camera. After being woken up by a notification on their phone, they checked it to see a message saying, "Your doorbell detected a visitor." After checking the app, they didn't see anything, and as anyone would, assumed it was maybe a bug or a small animal that tripped the motion sensor. However, the Redditor received more notifications, and after checking the app again, was faced with this disturbing image. Whether it's even a male or female is almost impossible to tell, but perhaps the most disturbing part of the image is the shape and distance of the person's eyes. It's not something anyone would ever want to see at their front door. In this video, we see someone wearing a mask approaching the door and covering the doorbell with a piece of tape. The homeowner got an alert that motion was detected on the porch, and upon checking the footage was ready to grab his gun. It's not known what was done while the tape was covering the camera, but eventually one side of the tape peeled off, revealing the person in the mask was gone. The homeowner doesn't know if it was simply kids playing a prank or someone who meant him and his family harm. This video shows exactly why you should always check who's outside your door before opening it.
On the doorbell.
This doorbell camera caught two men in front of the house. One of them approaching the front door and ringing the doorbell, armed with a gun. He attempts to hide his face as he approaches the door, then hides off to the side, waiting for someone to open up. The other man walks down the sidewalk, waiting for his friend to do whatever he was about to do. But luckily, nobody answered the door.
What's that smell? Drain odors explain. Unpleasant smells from your...
This homeowner's camera captured two suspicious men pull up in their driveway and wait outside their front door. The one on the left quickly notices the camera and the two flee. But not even 15 minutes later, the two pull up into the homeowner's driveway again, having apparently decided they'd go through with the break-in anyway. This time, one of them immediately attempts to kick the door down, but the homeowner is ready this time and speaks through the doorbell speaker, claiming the police are on their way, scaring the two off for good this time. On September 10th, 2018, a Florida man wearing a bulletproof vest and carrying an assault rifle rang his neighbor's doorbell at 4 in the morning. The homeowner grabbed her two children and stayed put in the bathroom. After spotting the man on her security footage, she immediately called the police and her husband, who was out of town for work. Roughly 25 minutes later, the police arrived. The man faced aggravated assault charges. The homeowner said the daughter of the unnamed man had stayed at their home recently, claiming she was afraid of her own father. At some off hour in the night, this man's doorbell camera captures a mysterious, transparent-looking, blurry figure slowly moving down the sidewalk across the street. It closely resembles a human, and that's what most may assume. But the weird part of this one is that after reviewing the footage, the homeowner asked a neighbor who also had a camera to check their footage at the same time, and their footage didn't reveal the figure walking down the sidewalk. This clip was taken by a Bangkok Airways pilot. The footage appears to show passengers towing their luggage through a connecting bridge towards the terminal of Phuket International Airport in southern Thailand. However, the bridge doesn't appear to be connected to a plane, leaving everyone to wonder where all the passengers were coming from. Some concluded that it may have just been the reflection from another bridge, while others still believe that they may have been the ghostly figures of dead passengers. This footage was captured by a Redditor who works as a night shift security guard at a hospital. On his first patrol through this hallway, he says the wheelchair was on the other side, and on his second patrol, he found it moved to the other side. So he started recording, and this is what he caught on video.
See? See, I fucking... No.
He said this was really the only time he'd ever experienced anything paranormal like this.
You wanna do it your way.
So tasty, it could make Poseidon switch to a spoon. Wholly divine taste from the Greek gods.
This next footage was captured by a homeowner's Nest camera, which is a camera designed to help homeowners monitor any suspicious activity around their homes. In this case, the owner continuously received messages from Nest saying it thinks it heard someone in the garage, or that it detected motion. Multiple strange occurrences happened through the span of a few hours, starting with a strange floating object near the center of the room. Throughout the footage, many orbs can be seen flying across the room, and in a few instances, the pinball machine in the back turns on by itself, and the pool balls even seem to move on their own. This is the video captured by an Argentine security guard named Raul Arguello. Raul had ventured below the bleachers of the stadium he works at to investigate a dressing room door which had been repeatedly opening and closing seemingly on its own. He was filming on his mobile phone in hopes of catching the possible culprits on camera. However, when he opens the door, no one is there. Unbeknownst to him, however, he captures the brief moment a specter quickly passes along the benches, crossing the video frame from left to right and disappearing through the wall.
Bueno, ya son como las 11 de la noche y la tercera vez que estoy escuchando este ruido de mierda. No sé qué está pasando, pero lo quiero grabar ahora para que después me crea la gente, porque esto nunca me pasó y nada, lo quería grabar. No sé yo, estoy podrido, la concha de la lora. Tengo mi linterna para que empiece la clase. Dios. Puta que te parió. La puta que te parió. Concha de la lora. La concha de la lora. Pero ¿cómo mierda puede ser que no haya nada hoy? Ya la tercera vez. Tercera vez que entro y no hay nada. Dios, me quiero ir. Quiero ir.
He stated he didn't see the ghostly figure himself, and only noticed it hours later when he checked the video footage on his phone. A home renovator was hired to remodel and sell a home, and turned on his camera after suspecting there's a squatter in the house after hearing mysterious sounds coming from around the house. What he eventually finds is something he says he couldn't explain.
Doing this cabinet crown, and I think there's a squatter in this house. think it's in here. Hello? Hello? Anybody here? Hello? Hello? The heck is that? Hello? Who is it?
Apparently, the man didn't finish work on the house, under the belief that there was a ghostly or demonic presence inside.
This is Mike, and Mike just had the best week of his life. It started with an
In this video, we watch as airport security guard Francisco Hernandez, who was finishing up his shift, heard a mysterious noise coming from a seemingly empty plane at a Mexico City airport. So he went to investigate, having no idea what he was about to see. He had to search the plane as part of the airline's protocol after hearing noises, and it's more than clear the plane was supposed to be empty.
Verga. No mames.
As the man shines his light down the aisle, a dark figure peers around the corner at him twice. The second time it happens, he notices it, sending him running in fear.
No mames.
There's a YouTuber by the name of Dan Bell, who's known for exploring abandoned places on his own and getting it on video. The purpose of these videos is not to catch paranormal footage, but simply to explore these places. However, in this specific video of his, a number of unsettling events take place that would make most people run for the exit. This video was shot at an abandoned children's asylum, and you could tell the eerie vibes from the place from just outside. Dan's camera battery inexplicably explodes in his hands, which is only the start of the strange occurrences.
Shit! Fucking battery exploded.
Soon after, without even knowing it, Dan is being stalked by an unknown presence. In this shot, you can see what looks like the shadow of someone's arm making a motion as if they had just told someone to shush. In a follow-up shot in an adjacent room, if you look closely, you can notice something peering in through the doorknob hole to this door. Exactly 1 minute later in the video, what looks like a white figure can be seen peering at the camera as Dan turns. And when his hand moves away, you can see the figure is gone. This white figure might match the white figure that peered through the doorknob hole. And finally, when Dan finds himself in a room with blood on the floor, you can hear a voice in the next room over, saying what most closely resembles "Let's get him."
Oh my god, I'm gonna fucking freak out.
Dan had a theory of his own as to what was following him around in there.
I think that a former patient has returned to this facility, to this house, and is living here in one of the rooms upstairs.
Others believe there may have been more than one person in there, and that they had some kind of white sheets over their heads to hide their identities, planning on robbing him or worse. Powlee's Island is a small town in South Carolina, which by the immediate looks of it is a very peaceful place. But there is a story that many of the locals swear by, known as the Gray Man. Many locals claim they have seen the Gray Man, and some go as far as to say that any time the Gray Man has been spotted, a hurricane has swept through the island shortly after. All sightings of the Gray Man have been on the coast. There are many pictures online which have allegedly caught the Gray Man, but this one video captured by a Coast Guard surveillance camera captures a strange gray apparition moving down the boardwalk, and this was captured during Hurricane Florence. YouTuber by the name of Time to Play TV decided to spend the night at an allegedly haunted hotel in Georgia, the Riverview Hotel.
As you know, this is where we went to. This place that the video you're about to see is a haunted hotel. It was made in like 1916 by 3 women who had it built, and then they ran it, and they obviously eventually have passed away. And then I guess the sightings started happening after they started passing away. People would see a woman in the hallway. Stuff would move, stuff would happen, and people would say, "Hey, that's the girl I saw. The pictures on the wall is the woman I saw."
His plan was to set up a camcorder in the room while he slept and try to capture any paranormal footage. Unbeknownst to him until after his visit, a visitor had recently died in that exact room he stayed in. Before even setting up his camcorder, strange things already started to occur, like the fan turning on and off and the bathroom door shutting on its own.
My fan has shut off and turned back on. See that? Now the fan and the light are both plugged in behind the bed, and they're connected. So that shuts them both off. You hear the fan shut off? And the fan by itself is turned off, I want to say, maybe 2 or 3 times. The bathroom door over there, it's closed. Now, I don't mean a little bit. I mean, it's fully closed. Now, the reason it's open now is because I thought maybe a breeze, maybe something. There's no windows open. I got nothing going on, and that thing right there is just closed all by itself. It's closing right now, guys. It just moved a little bit. I'm telling you, it just... See that? There's no one in here with me. Completely alone. No? There's no one here, guys. I'm using the front facing the camera, so it's kind of hard to see. But you can see. Watch. Watch. See, it's a watch. It doesn't close by itself.
Then night came, and upon checking the footage the next morning, he could see things were just as strange overnight. Not only the chair, but also the entire bed moves, he decides he's not going back to sleep. Whether this was an elaborate hoax or truly a haunted hotel room is up to you to decide.
I recently went to patient first when I wasn't feeling well. The doctor was so great. And I learned that I could see their doctor's schedules online, so I could see the same doctor on my next visit if I wanted. It was amazing. They truly are patient first.
It's the story everyone's heard 100 times already. A house nestled in the Long Island town of Amityville, which will forever be linked to what is known as the Amityville horror phenomenon. On November 13th, 1974, the estate was the scene of a mass murder. Ronald J. DeFeo Jr., who was 23 at the time, shot and killed with a rifle his entire family while they were asleep, which included his parents and 4 siblings. 13 months later, the Lutz family purchased the 5-bedroom, 3.5-bathroom home at a drastically reduced price of $80,000. But they only lasted 28 days before leaving it due to strange phenomenon, including George Lutz, the father, waking up at 3 a.m. every morning, which was around the time Ron DeFeo carried out his murders, and the youngest daughter, Missy, beginning to speak to an imaginary young entity in the house. A camera investigation was conducted of the house, and out of all the pictures taken, one stood out the most. The boy in this picture is commonly thought to represent the youngest DeFeo family member who was murdered in the house, and also the entity that Missy had been communicating with. This is another video uploaded by a YouTuber who decided to venture out alone to an allegedly haunted abandoned building. This time, a house in a rural part of Japan, seemingly in the middle of the woods. While scoping the perimeter of the house, the cameraman is suddenly startled by this.
音がやばい。何何何？何？何？手じゃない今。 ねえちょっと待って手打つんなかった今ねえ
A hand can be seen grabbing the corner of the house, causing the man to flee. Even after this, though, apparently the cameraman is still determined enough to enter the house to continue with the investigation, against anyone's better judgment.
なんか聞こえるうわちょっと待ってなんか聞こえるんだけど何嘘うわ聞こえたうわ聞こえちゃったどうしよううわちょっと待って
Shortly after entering the basement, this is what the camera catches.
裏側ねえいやマジでやばいなんかいる絶対いる何
The cameraman was clearly being stalked by someone in this house. By who remains a mystery. Some reactions to the video even suggest that it may have been the ghost of someone who formerly lived there. Some reactions to the video even suggest that it may have been the ghost of someone who formerly lived there. This happened back at a magical, delicate age when I still believed in Santa Claus. It was Christmas Eve night, or technically Christmas at that point. The time, I have no idea. All I know is it was late and everyone in my house was probably asleep. I woke up randomly to what I don't know, but I was probably extremely thirsty. I had to get out of my bed and walk all the way downstairs to the kitchen to get a glass of water. There were night lights on in the living room and kitchen, so I didn't have to turn on any lights to see where I was going. Whenever I was thirsty when I was a little kid, I'd always decide to finish the glass in the kitchen instead of bring it up to my room. I don't know why, just one of those stupid things I did as a kid. As I was sipping the water, I heard noises come from down in the den, where we had our Christmas tree. Sounded like a big bag. I peered my head around the wall leading down the stairway to the den, but it was a little too dark to see who could be down there. I actually thought maybe it was my mom, so I started walking down the stairs, and the rustling of the bag stopped. I turned down the couch side lamp, and there I was, greeted with a massive man, both in height and size, wearing a red suit and hat and a familiar long white beard. It was Santa Claus. He waved me over, and I nervously but excitedly walked over to him. He patted my head and said he was just delivering my presents from his black bag. I looked at the bag, which seemed to be full of small boxes. I tried to get a peek in the bag, but he stopped me and said, "No, don't do that. It's a surprise." I noticed there were already some presents under the tree. He turned me around and whispered in my ear I need to go back to bed. For some reason I didn't go. I just turned around and kept looking at Santa. Eventually he actually started walking me up the stairs, telling me we need to be quiet. He asked me which way my room was, and then he told me to go up the second flight of stairs. That was when I actually obeyed him. I looked down the stairs when I was at the top, and all I saw was the eerie figure of the Santa Claus looking up at me. I realized he turned off the nightlight as I was walking up the stairs. I went to my room and shut the door, excited that I just saw Santa. As I tried to fall back asleep, I heard a loud bang from downstairs in the den. The sound traveled all the way back up to my room. I assumed that was Santa leaving the house. The next morning, I woke up early to my mom's screams downstairs. I ran down to the den, where my mom and dad already were, to a disturbing and confusing scene for my young self. There were no presents under the tree, and the sliding window was broken. I don't mean the glass was shattered, I mean it was slammed shut so hard it got knocked off the sliding mechanism. I confusedly asked my parents what happened, and explained that I saw Santa last night. When I told them this, they frantically tried getting as much info out of me as possible. My dad called the police, and when I asked him about the story for fresh details before writing this, he said the 911 operator said on the line that 2 other calls for the same incident had come in that morning. Apparently, a man dressed as Santa Claus was targeting certain houses with accessible windows, and he was stealing the gifts under their Christmas trees. I believe there's a special place in hell for that man. My parents had to tell me later that day that Santa isn't real, and that should anything like that ever happen again, not to trust it. I once worked as a night security guard for a brief, horrible part of my life. It was for many places, but for the longest time, a mall in Chicago, which I'll leave the name out so that the story can in no way get traced back to me. As the lone night security guard in a huge city mall, it was very relaxing and laid back. But of course, working graveyard hours was the worst, especially when I had to do it on Christmas Eve night. I did my regular pacing back and forth the wide halls of the mall, occasionally having a seat by the big center Christmas tree which would stay lit 24/7. After getting a coffee from the security lounge section, I stepped back into the hall and noticed all the way on the other side of the mall, a light was on in one of the stores. A light that wasn't on before, I swear it. No one was supposed to be in the mall besides me. I jogged over to the store and set my coffee down under a plant. It was a jewelry shop. I tried opening the door, but it was locked. So how could anyone be in there? The light in the store suddenly started flickering, so naturally I had to chalk it up as faulty wiring, false alarm. I knelt down to pick up my coffee again, and as I looked up, I saw someone's head behind the front counter of the store. Just their head, like they were hiding. But it happened so fast. One moment there was light, the next darkness, and when the light flicked back on again, the head was gone. I literally rubbed my eyes and shook my head, wondering was I seeing things. I took my master keyring off my belt and fiddled for the key to the store. I didn't know where the light switch was, and to be honest, I was way too freaked out to check behind that counter with nothing but a flashlight. I shut the door and relocked it and walked back to my post by the Christmas tree. I started chugging my coffee because I really thought I was losing it after seeing what I saw. The lights in that store all the ways down on the other side of the hall were still off, but I heard a click and then a bang echoed down in my direction, followed by someone running across one side of the hall to the other, before disappearing in an intersecting exit hallway. I sprang up and almost spit out the remainder of my coffee. I ran down the hall till I came to the intersecting smaller hallway. This hallway, which led to one of the exits, had a bunch of massage chairs, coin-operated kiddie rides, and the public restrooms. I didn't see anywhere else that person could have gone besides the restroom, as the exit doors were all locked from both sides. I got to the door of the men's bathroom and stopped, once again faced with the fear of confronting whoever was in that mall with me. I cracked the door open just slightly, enough for me to start speaking into the bathroom, saying whoever's in here needs to get out before I call the cops. There was a crying and moaning type noise coming from inside the restroom. I opened the door fully and realized it was coming from one of the stalls. I repeated what I said at the door, but the crying sounds didn't stop. I knelt down in front of the stall to get a peek under, and I saw 2 black shoes facing the door, facing me. It seemed the person was just facing the stall door, making these crying noises. The crying stopped, and then the next thing I saw was the person on the other side of the stall quickly get on their knees and look under the door back at me. I recognized it as the same person from behind that counter in that store. I got back on my feet and left the bathroom to call the police and explain the situation. As a security guard, I never encountered anything like this overnight, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I definitely did not want to make it physical. A couple police officers came to the doors at the end of the hall, and I let them in. We all went to the men's bathroom again, and the stall door was still shut, and the man was still inside. For the longest time, the officers demanded he come out with his hands up, After a while of him refusing to listen, the male officer started kicking in the stall door until it broke open. The two officers apprehended the nut job inside the stall. As they walked him out of the mall, though, the man had his head turned to look at me the entire time. I looked away. His dead eyes staring into my soul genuinely disturbed me. He looked like he wanted to kill me. Before he was put in the back of the police car, he said my name, and I immediately got the chills. The officers said they would find out who he is and everything, and they went on their way. My shift ended a few hours later, and for the remainder of my time working at that mall, I was always paranoid every time I'd turn a corner that he'd be standing there. Our parents had our youngest sibling much later than they had my brother and I. This happened last year when I was 18, my older brother was 24, and our youngest sibling Rachel was just 2. I was home from college for winter break. My older brother would be returning home from out of state in a few days, and my parents were on a couple's vacation. It was about a week before Christmas, and I was tasked with taking care of Rachel until my parents got back. My time watching Rachel consisted of a lot of sitting around the house, having friends over, and just watching TV and movies. I would let Rachel play in the living room with her toys as I'd watch TV with no lights on but the Christmas tree, which I always find to make watching TV a lot more relaxing. When Rachel started to get tired, I brought her up to her room, changed her, and put her in the crib upstairs. I made sure to turn on the baby monitor as my parents did every night just to make sure I could hear her if she got restless. Something to note, Rachel's room shares a bathroom with my mom and dad's room. So basically, both my parents' and Rachel's rooms are connected to a bathroom, which thus connects the 2 bedrooms in a sense. I went back downstairs to watch TV. I think I was watching The Grinch when sound started coming from the baby monitor. Distorted, human-like noises. It didn't sound like Rachel, so I hurried back upstairs to Rachel's room. I burst in so quickly and aggressively that she immediately awoke and started crying. I looked around the room naturally. Then I picked Rachel up and started gently rocking her. But I realized this didn't help. She was probably too big for it. So I put her back down in the crib and started tickling her, then gently whispering her back to sleep. When she had her eyes closed again, I left the room. A few minutes later, I heard Rachel crying again through the baby monitor. I ran up to see what's wrong, and she was standing in her crib, pointing at the bathroom door, which was cracked open. I honestly didn't remember if it had been cracked open like that earlier or not. I went to check the bathroom, and it was clear. I told her calmly she's imagining things. I wasn't sure how much she understood of what I was saying, but after a few minutes in there with her, I got her to settle back down. Once again, I went down to the living room to continue watching TV. The orange light on the baby monitor once again started going off. I felt like I was in a horror movie scenario. I could distinctly hear a man's whispering coming from the baby monitor. I ran back up to that room faster than ever, burst through the door to Rachel's crying again. I went to pick her up to get her out of there. And when I turned for the door, I looked into the dark bathroom, which now had the door wide open. There was a man in my parents' room, and he started walking through the bathroom towards me and Rachel. I ran out of the house to the neighbor's house while holding Rachel. Our neighbor Judy let us in and let me use her phone to call the cops. They didn't find anyone, but Judy let us stay the night at her place regardless. The next morning, Judy went back to my house with me to look around as support. The house seemed clear. However, I couldn't help but look around the house to try and find out how he got in. But I just couldn't, and it made no sense. A couple weeks later, my mom sent me to the attic to put some of the Christmas decorations away, and you wouldn't believe what I found up there. In the corner of the attic was a bed of blankets and a pillow, hidden behind a bunch of ripped up boxes stacked up as a wall. I immediately associated it to that man in our house. We have no idea how long that man was actually in our house for. this video, a father and his 11-year-old son are snowboarding in France. The two make a point of riding off the piste, which is the actual ski run with the more compacted snow. Because of this, the father isn't able to see a crevasse which was completely covered by snow. A crevasse is a deep crack or hole found in the surface of a sheet of ice. As the father falls headfirst into the hole, the only thing that stops him from continuing to fall deeper is his snowboard, which wedges against the two walls of the crevasse. Luckily, his son notices and hears his father's cries for help before he's too far gone, and comes back to try and assist him. When he's unable to help, the son calls for assistance, and 3 doctors who they passed earlier came to his aid to dig him out. At one point in the video, you can see just how far down the crevasse seems to go, and had his son not noticed him fall in, he may have fallen in deeper to a point where it would have been impossible to find him. In this video, a father and his son are glazed the space around a tree under its branches that does not get the same amount of snow as the surrounding open space. Therefore, it can end up sucking a person in if they get too close.
I just need to breathe.
If the father had been ahead of his son, it's likely he may not have been able to save his son, as you can even hear him say at one point that he couldn't breathe. Tree wells are actually responsible for 20% of all ski-related deaths. Many people fear the ski lifts more than the actual act of skiing or snowboarding down the hill. There have actually been many ski lift horror stories to surface the internet, some involving death. Back in 2018, a shocking ski lift accident in Georgia's Eastern Godoy Resort left 11 people with mild injuries. The ski lift went out of control when suddenly the chairlift started to move in reverse at a very high speed, crushing ski lift chairs into each other. Some were actually thrown from the chairlifts as their chairs violently whipped around the bottom of the lift. In the background, you can see people hanging onto their chairs, waiting until they were close enough to the ground to jump. Just based off the video footage from these 2 different angles, you could imagine the horror of the visitors as they were being yelled at by bystanders to jump off the moving chairs. This accident did not lead to any deaths. In this quick clip, a man is following the tracks made by a previous skier, only to realize once it's too late that the tracks led to a drop of over 150 feet. Unable to stop, the man free falls off the cliff into the snow. better shot, you can see just how steep of a drop this would have been, and depending on how he landed, it could have easily killed him. This was a video posted on this channel many years ago. Maybe some of you remember it. An inexperienced snowboarder was tackling slushmans at Bridger Bowl, a very intense slope for somebody inexperienced with that kind of terrain. He comes up to some rocks that he knew he couldn't snowboard around, so he takes off his board to walk around it. As his board starts to slip away, he frantically grabs for it, causing him to start sliding uncontrollably down the rocky slopes.
Oh shit!
The GoPro falls off his head as he continues tumbling down another few hundred feet. A ski patrolman finds it and puts it in his pocket as it's still recording. The man who recorded this video says he had a laceration of 6 to 8 inches across his head and down to his brain and a broken neck, which, considering that he didn't have the helmet on, was actually a miracle, as he could have easily died. One thing that can be gathered from all these clips is that you should never ski or snowboard alone. I was taking a road trip in my Mustang from Texas to Arizona to visit my brothers. I usually keep emergency supplies in the trunk, such as water and tools. I was taking, I guess, what you would call a scenic back route, because I liked flying at high speeds with the top down without worry of other cars or police. This was one of those completely deserted seeming roads with one lane on either side and nothing but desert sand, cacti, and shrubs as far as the eye can see. I was flying down this road when the car started to emit these concerning popping noises from under the hood, and the car started to jolt or jump slightly. I put a heavy foot on the brakes to bring the car from a speeding 90 miles per hour to a less than gradual halt. I got out from the car, popping the hood, pretending as if I'd even know what to expect or how I'd go about fixing it. There was no smoke, nothing like that, but I didn't have a clue what could be the problem. I got back in my car to try and start it, and as I feared, the damn thing wouldn't even start back up now. The car was an '01 Ford Mustang, so yeah, it was an old car with its share of problems. Naturally, I tried to call my roadside service company, but bad became worse, realizing I didn't have any service this far out in the desert. I was more or less stranded. I hadn't seen a single other car pass me that whole hour I was driving on that road, and I was scared to think how long it would take for someone to pass. I waited on the side of the road, sitting on my car's trunk for literally hours, sweating my ass off. My spirits rose when I saw the shine of a car reflecting the sunlight speeding down the road in the horizon. I hopped off my trunk and started walking and waving my arms out for help, but the car didn't stop. It zoomed past me. Pure evil. I didn't know how somebody could leave another human being stranded like that. Nightfall came and the hunger was setting in. No cars had passed since the first, and I was trying to fill my stomach with the water bottles I had in my trunk. Eventually, I saw headlights approaching. I had my car's hazards on, but I also waved my arms once more. The truck pulled to the side, and a fairly large man stepped out. I told him my car broke down and asked if he knew anything about cars, but he didn't immediately seem interested in my car. He more so seemed interested in asking me if I was alone, where I was going, and why I didn't just call for help. Then he asked me if anyone knew I was here. These questions were certainly making me uncomfortable. He finally offered me a ride, though if he was trying to make a point of making me uncomfortable, he accomplished that. I stepped up into his pickup truck, and off we started driving. He said it would be a long while before either of us would have phone service. He started asking me more questions, like why I would decide to take a back route like this. Minutes in, the truck started to slow down, and I heard him mutter, "Ah, shit." He pulled onto the sand on the side of the road, looked at me, and said the piece of crap broke down. This couldn't be happening. I looked back at the man and realized he was still looking at me. Like 5 seconds went by and he was just still staring at me. He finally asked me to go lift up the hood once he would crank the latch. I can only describe this whole situation so well, but through everything up until this point, I was insanely suspicious. I went in front of his truck with a bit of distance between the front and I, and waited to hear a click, meaning the truck's hood was unlatched. In my head, I was picturing him trying to run me over, and that's exactly what happened. As I took one step towards the truck to try and open the hood, I heard the roar of the engine as the man was on the gas. I dove for my life. If I reacted half a second later, I'd have lost my legs or instantly been killed. I took off running into the pitch black night, looking back to see the taillights still there. And then this. Gunshots. Surely gunshots aimed at me. That man was trying to kill me. It was too dark out there for him to possibly shoot me dead without some kind of luck, but I thought I was going to die at any moment. I ran as far as I could, then dove and made myself as low to the ground as possible. I heard a truck speeding off in the distance, so I turned and saw the taillights of the truck slowly disappearing down the empty road. I eventually fell asleep on the side of the road, and the nightmare didn't end until early morning, when I woke up to another pickup truck passing by. I waved them down, covered in dirt and sand, and thank God this man was actually normal, he and his wife. They gave me water and drove me to the nearest town, where I was able to call the towing company. It was a 45-minute drive back to my car on that goddamned road, then that same distance back to bring it into a shop. Long story short, this was the worst trip and experience of my life. Having someone try to run you over and then shoot at you isn't something you simply get over.
CarMax. This is what it means to live ramen rich.
There were these woods by my parents' house that I would like to walk through a lot. I found this one very small circular clearing in the woods. It sat by a small, calming stream of water, and it had a big rock in the center that I'd like to sit on and read my books. I guess you could say I was a loner child. One day, like any other, I walked to the circle, sat on the rock, opened my book to the bookmark, and resumed my novel. It wasn't exactly midday. It was approaching the end of the day, so it was getting slightly darker in the woods. I was interrupted by footsteps behind me. I set down my book and went into the trees to see if there was a deer or other animal nearby. Black bears are what always worried me as a kid. I heard more footsteps, so I followed quietly in that direction. Whatever it was moving fast. Faster than I possibly could while trying to remain quiet. The footsteps disappeared. I figured the animal got too far away, but as long as it wasn't interested in bothering me, I didn't care what it was. I started walking back to my circle, but as soon as I got a view of it between the trees, my heart dropped to my stomach. There was someone sitting on my rock, back to me, but I could tell they were holding my book. I didn't know whether to approach or not until the man said out loud, "I don't like this book," and turned to me, as if he knew exactly where I was standing, even still behind a few trees. He said, "I watch you come here a lot." He had on this weird smile that immediately made me even more uncomfortable. My 13-year-old self didn't have a fight or flight response system. I only had a flight response instinct. The man stood up and took 1 or 2 steps towards me, and I started running. I knew the way back to my house easily. I was there after a couple minutes of running. That night, I got a knock at my window. I woke up terrified and screamed for my dad. My dad came rushing in, and when I told him, he went outside to check. I was horrified when he came rushing in, and when I told him, he went outside to check. I was outright disturbed when he came back in with my book that I left in the woods. He said it was left outside my window. I slept in my parents' room for like a week after that, and needless to say, I never returned to that circle in the woods. I had taken a job working for a company based in the mountains. They offered me a cottage to stay in while working there. It was an old home built into the side of a mountain and surrounded by the forest. I lived in the basement, which had been converted into a small living space with a bathroom, kitchen, sleeping area, and a laundry room. The laundry room was L-shaped and had a door that went out back and into the surrounding forest. The door that led to the forest was locked from the inside and was quite difficult to open. I never used that door and always kept it locked. The rest of the house was empty, but I didn't have access to it. After a day of work, I returned to my little basement for an evening reading and playing solitaire. I turned off my lamp and started to nod off when I heard a noise. The noise was like wood creaking. I played it off as my imagination, but then it repeated. I thought maybe one of the cabinets in the kitchen was latched improperly and swung open. I checked, but all the cabinets were secured. I opened my closet, thinking maybe something in there had made the sound. But again, nothing. The last place to look was the laundry room. I opened the door that connected the house to the laundry room and was instantly hit by a gust of cold night air. I slowly turned the corner and witnessed the door that led to the outside just swing in the nighttime breeze. I am 100% certain I had this door closed, and like I said earlier, there is no way it could open on its own. I don't know what happened. Was there someone waiting in the laundry room, just waiting for me to fall asleep before sneaking out? Was it something supernatural? Either way, there are few times I had ever felt such genuine horror. Tennessee has some real characters out in nature. I hiked all around while in school there. Made some good memories with a girl in the enveloping nature. Tennessee has good roads to popular hiking sites and tons of mini trails branching off. Sometimes you need to know what to look for as far as trail markers go, because the interesting ones are always a good ways out. There's one spring waterfall that spills across a mossy granite wall, towering over a shallow stream that empties into a decent-sized pond. I went out there with a friend last time, and we got separated on the way out. I have no freaking clue how that happened. We've each been hiking for over 10 years. I've run over it 1,000 times in my mind, and it has to be this one ledge system. To get to the top of the fall, you need to take a longish detour that has an old wooden railing and a 3-way branching ledge system. So I've taken all 3 routes and ended up at the same spot. They take maybe 3 to 4 minutes to blast through, and they're kind of like rocky corridors. I don't take the left one anymore, because I'm 90% sure these big stains in the middle are blood. Don't want to know what happened there. It's odd because the left is by far the most inviting. Flowers bloom from vines that are etched into the moss-matted bedrock. Anyways, I'm 45 seconds ahead of her, and opt for the right path when I realize I should tell her to avoid the left. It's really hard to reverse given the sloping angle of the path and a few short drops that become narrow climbs. Screw it. Faster if I speed through and yell down. I get out of the right corridor and swing around to where the middle path drops off. I yell, but no reply. So she took left. I run over and climb into the left corridor, thinking she saw the stains and freaked out. To be fair, it looks like someone got bludgeoned to death. I ran up the corridor, but she was gone. I called her name, nothing. And that's what made my hair stand up. I literally heard nothing. No birds, no hum of the forest, not even wind. Just myself and the babbling water. I traced left all the way back and noted a few side passages if you miss a couple of the jumps. No bodies were in there or the middle, though. Good. I figure I may as well get to the top of the falls where I can get somewhat of an aerial view. I get there, and Ashley's sitting there waiting for me. She says she took the left path with the trail guide. What? There are no trail guides. There are rangers, but she knows the difference. They would not be in the rock labyrinth. This guy had a uniform and a trail authority visor on. She knew what I was thinking based on my face, and agreed that we should reverse course ASAP without us saying anything out loud. It's weird when you know you're being watched. We pretended we were going back to the car real quick to get more water, and so I left some fish food in a little crevice like I always did, and we left. She showed me this weird side passage that could not have existed a year before. I walked all the way around. You had to crouch, but you could walk through the labyrinth if you kept left, though. Hindsight, we shouldn't have taken another way. I think he lives in those tunnels. Ashley said he kept trying to lead her in a different direction, but she just followed the light and saw him standing in the tunnel as she walked the rest of the trip to the top. That means he was in there while I was looking for her. And that means she followed him before seeing the blood splatters all over the floors and walls. And that's not the totally fucked up part. The fish food that I left in the crevice was on the hood of my car. Her water bottle was gone too. She had a carabiner to her pack, so he must have snuck up and taken it at some point. That's strange because we're fast hikers. We never went back there and never will. This first video was uploaded by a YouTuber who created his channel to document the weird things going on in his house. He finds that the screwdriver on his kitchen counter seems to be moving on its own, so he checks under the cabinet to apparently show there's no kind of trickery underneath, and also shows there's no kinds of magnets or anything when he picks up the screwdriver. After that, stomps can be heard from above him in the attic, so he goes up there to check.
Hello? Hello?
After finding nothing, the video cuts out. Randonautica is an app that sends you on a random adventure to explore the world around you. The app randomly generates a point on the map that you have to follow the way to. People have been reporting finding weird and paranormal things at their destinations, such as in this video. The app sent the person who recorded this video to a ditch in the middle of nowhere by a highway. Inside of the ditch, he found one tricycle and one small bike with training wheels. At the end of the video, very faint children's laughter can be heard. This is a short and straightforward clip of a man sitting in his bed in a dimly lit room who started recording after hearing noises and seeing his door slightly move. This is what he caught. The man was brave enough to get up right away and check the darkness outside of his bedroom, only to find nothing.
Prepare to think bigger. Gain real-world experience.
This video was filmed by a boy recording his friend jumping into his trampoline. As the two are having their fun, you can notice something in the left corner of the video. You can see a figure dressed in white with black hair crawling out from under the trampoline. To this day, the two say they have no idea who the person was. This footage was taken by YouTuber Franco TV, the location being the old South Pittsburgh Hospital in Tennessee, regarded as one of the most haunted buildings in America. Throughout the video, various sounds and voices can be heard, and things can be seen moving throughout the hospital. As Franco enters the in-house pharmacy, viewers believe they can hear a voice saying either "get out" or "hello." Seconds later, 3 medicine bottles fall over completely on their own.
Night vision, the other side there. Are you kidding me? Look at this. No freaking way. Holy crap. I literally... What the hell was that? All these bottles just got pushed down. Frontwards and backwards. And it's oxycodone. That is a very, very addictive drug. And there is a spirit here that haunts this place that apparently is always waiting for a drug dealer or whatever to come in here that overdosed in this hospital.
Later on in the video, after many creepy mannequins, dolls, and moving objects later, Franco finds himself in a hallway where a child's horse toy is seen rocking back and forth on its own and making noises. This leads Franco to believe there's a child spirit in the hallway with him.
Oh my god. That horse is moving. And it's on. What the hell? Is that your horse? Do you like playing with the horse? I feel like this is like a child spirit in this room. And it oddly got actually cold.
The video truly does make this hospital seem like a hotbed of paranormal activity. This is the video a Redditor captured of their baby. The baby seems to be struggling to hold onto the remote, as though an unseen presence is trying to grab it from him. The baby even says no and stop. If that doesn't convince you, the truly shocking part is towards the end of the video here, where the remote can literally be seen flying out of the baby's hands to the left, only for him to reach and grab it to stop it. So was this a setup by the parents, or was something else really in the room trying to grab the remote from the child? This is another video involving a baby, this one captured on a baby monitor. Throughout the video, an orb can be seen hovering over the baby's crib. However, on a few separate occasions, the baby's legs can be seen being pulled by something, though you can't see by what. The movement is not one the baby would be able to make on its own, as it can actually be seen being dragged around the crib. The orb also seems to move in the general direction that the baby is being pulled. Given that not many sane parents would be willing to set up a rather cruel hoax like this, it may be a little less easy to dismiss. This one is really freaky. This is the footage captured by a surveillance camera aimed at a valuable World War II-era ventriloquist doll in its case. In the middle of one night, the case door begins to swing open and closed. But the most disturbing part of the video is when the doll's eyes open and close and its lips appear to move. In addition to this, orbs can be seen flying around throughout the video. How would you personally try to explain this one? Most new cars these days come equipped with high-tech camera systems, some of which can detect when a person is present around the car to help the driver stay more aware and avoid hitting anyone. But what if your car detected someone that wasn't there? This man took out his phone and began to record when he noticed on the dashboard of his M3 that the car was sensing the presence of a person in the front right of the car. However, there is no one visibly standing out there. This could seem like it seems straight. However, M3 that the car was sensing the presence of a person in the front right of the car. However, there is no one visibly standing out there. This could seem like it seems straight from the movie Bird Box. This last video was taken during a police operation in Brazil in what appears to be an abandoned hospital. The police all seem to be confused and shook as they witness what appears to be a door repeatedly swinging open and slamming shut on its own.
Cuidado, Judá. Cuidado, mano. Que é isso, mano? Mano, não tem nada. Caralho, mano. Que é isso, bicho? Caralho, mano. Mano, que é isso, bicho?
As they examine the door, no strings or any other forms of trickery could be seen in the video.
É doido, Deus me livre, mano. Vai, mano, vai, mano. Vai, mano, vai, mano. Vai, mano.
The group of officers run away after something behind them falls. It's unknown what it was. This holds up to be one of the more credible videos that have recently surfaced on the internet. Being a little kid is a scary point in your life, yet you're too young and innocent to even realize it. I have a horrible memory from my early childhood that I wish I could simply block out completely, but I just can't. I was, I believe, 6 or 7 years old. I was at the summer rec program that my parents had signed me up for. I was in the 6 and 7-year-olds group, the youngest group at the camp. One day our group was at the playground, and some oldish man sitting on a bench started talking to me. He knew my name. I remember feeling very comfortable with him, like he seemed kind. He gave me a candy that I ate on the spot, and he offered to push me on the swing. I think I told him that's alright and continued talking to him, asking him dumb little kid questions. He introduced himself as Robbie, I still remember to the day, and told me he was friends with my mom, and since she was running late, he'd have to pick me up after camp. I said okay, and around that time, my counselors shouted for our group to assemble our line by the gate so we could leave. We got back to our group's home area, where we would sit and wait for the parents to come pick the kids up. I saw Robbie approaching the bench, and he said to Cal, one of my counselors, that he was picking me up for the day since my mom wasn't available. Cal looked at me and made sure I knew him. I nodded my head. Cal crossed my name off in his notebook and high-fived me goodbye, and I walked off with this Robbie guy. I remember he grabbed and held my hand as we walked, and And I also remember that he was walking extremely fast, like it was hard for me to keep up with my short little legs. We made it to his car. He let me in the back passenger seat. He seemed to be in a hurry. He rushed into his seat, started the car, locked the doors, and started driving fast out of the parking lot. I asked, "Are you taking me home?" "Yeah," he replied. I remember hearing some yelling noises from outside the car. I lifted myself off the seat to look out the rear window and saw two of my counselors pointing at the car I was in to one of the park supervisors. This is when things got scary for my little self. As I was looking out the back window, the man screamed at the top of his lungs to get down. I got so scared I started to cry and tried opening the door when he was at a red light, but he had the child lock on. He tried to calm me down by apologizing, saying he was driving me home. I can't remember what exactly I was thinking, but I do remember being scared, starting to wonder if I was actually being brought home. We were in the car for quite some time, and I started to realize I didn't recognize where we were. We were not anywhere near my house. I felt like I had to throw up from being so scared. I remember Robbie muttering, oh shit," constantly under his breath, and he kept looking in his rearview mirror. Then, the sound of a police siren directly behind us made him scream in anger once more. He pulled to the side on a neighborhood road and told me to go along with whatever he said, but he didn't have a chance for that. Two police officers stormed out from the car with their guns half drawn and yelled at Robbie to step out of the vehicle with his hands up. He did so without question and was cuffed while they had him laying face first on the concrete. He was brought into the car while the other officer stuck with me, comforted me, and asked me questions. Another cop car arrived, and so did my mom in her minivan. She was in tears and hugged me when she got out. So backing up, when Robbie, or whatever his real name was walking me to his car, my mom had already gotten to the bench to pick me up, and Cal told her some man already picked me up. That's when they ran to catch what car we got into and called the cops right away. One of the camp supervisors was actually tailing us on the road, which is why Cal was panicking and how the cops were able to locate us. Now you can see why I wish I could block this memory out. It's disturbing, it's sickening, and I often have to think about the horrible, unimaginable things that could have been done to me if I had not been saved. There was this one night after work where all the employees at my job clocked out a little late because we happened to be extremely busy that night. As usual, we cleaned the store and headed for the front to clock out. That night after work, I would be hanging with two of my coworkers. We smoked a blunt and went to Wingstop. All was well, and 1 a.m. finally struck. I needed to be home and I needed gas. I said bye to my two coworkers and headed for the nearest gas station. It was actually right around the corner from my work. Thank God, because I'd gone to work with it running on E. My car was running on fumes. Although being the closest gas station, I avoid this one for many reasons, as do many other people, especially at this time of night. There's often homeless drug addicts walking through it. Many people hit cars and drive off, fights, people scream in the cars. It just manages to attract the wrong people. So, as I'm pulling up to the pump, the high officially leaves. I come to realize that I'm about to pump gas at a cornered gas station hidden by buildings at 1 o'clock in the morning. No car, no person was seen in sight. I got out and turned around to reach inside for my wallet. I come up, and there's this homeless man going through the trash with this very large white bag. I'm not talking about big hefty that promises to keep all your household trash intact all the way to the outside trash can. I mean, this bag was freakishly big, and I couldn't see through it. I was startled at first, as I didn't even hear him walking or anything. I insert my card and look over. His head is in the trash at this point. I see him digging for recyclables, I think, and I just continue trying to get the thing to take my card. To be safe again, I make sure I lock my car once more, and this is where things get scary. As the sound of the car goes off, this man perks his head up, almost deer-like, and makes direct eye contact. He looks to be at least 6'4", but really skinny. He had injection marks all over his body, and his skin was peeling, rashing, and he had a buzz cut. Despite him obviously being a drug addict, his face wasn't affected too badly yet. Look, they gave me a bag big enough to fit a dead body in. The words didn't seem real. I felt the color leave my body. And just then, this man picks up an old metal little kid's bike from the other side of the trash can. He begins to slowly, step by step, come closer and begins telling me he wasn't going to take me. He held the kid's bike like it was weightless. Mind you, I'm a girl and personally have no arm strength. I'm not going to take you. We're not going to take you. Don't look scared. Look pretty. At this point, I was already inching my way closer to my car. I jumped for it. That's when I booked it out of there and realized there was another man hiding at the pump behind me. The other man was wearing a mask that covered both his mouth and nose. So much could have happened that night, and I'm glad it didn't go the other way. I'm pretty sure that man was going to come up from behind me and either make me smell something to leave me unconscious or who knows what. Please be safe out there, and always be prepared for the unexpected. When I was 10, my uncle used to own a property in Kentucky, which was not too far of a drive from our home in Virginia. He was an avid hunter, so his place was in the middle of the woods, a perfect hunting area. He let my dad take us there when he wasn't using it, just as a nice little escape from the suburbs, because we all loved the secludedness. I would love to go on hikes in the woods by myself, because I've always been a nature freak. One time while hiking late in the day, I thought I heard footsteps around me. They sounded like human footsteps, so I turned and started walking the other way. At the edge of the woods, however, I saw someone standing behind a tree, very shady-like. Seemed he was trying to hide. I ran back in the direction of the property and went inside the house. I told my dad I was being watched in the woods. He told me to just stay on my uncle's property and not wander off. I didn't want to go back outside after that anyway, though. My dad and two little brothers went off to pick up a pie at a nearby pizza place. I stayed behind because I'd rather watch the movie that was playing on the TV. I'd been alone in that home many times. I wasn't scared. I heard steps coming up the little wooden front porch. There was a knock at the door, so I jumped up to let them in because I was starving. But I froze at the door, thinking, how could they be back so quickly? Dad? I said through the door. Someone on the other side said it's not your dad, but we need some help. My heart dropped. I looked out the window to the porch. It was still just bright enough to see an unfamiliar man standing on the porch. He noticed me at the window, looked at me, and smiled. I shut the curtains and yelled, "Dad, there's someone here at the front door." I was pretending as if my dad were still home. "We saw your dad leave just before. Just open the door, we just need some help." I ran to my uncle's master bedroom to hide there. There was a tap at his window, and I saw a second man outside. He also yelled, "Open the door, please." I heard kicks at the front door of the home. It was a very flimsy old wooden door, and it gave in easily. I panicked and went to my uncle's closet where he kept his guns. I grabbed his shotgun, which he taught me how to use, and as the door to the bedroom opened, I aimed the gun at the tall man's torso. He raised his hands and nervously laughed, telling me to calm down. He backed away, back to the front door with his hand still raised, and he said, "We're gonna leave, okay?" The two men walked away into the woods, no car in sight. My dad soon returned to see the broken-in door, and I explained everything. He called the cops, who stayed with us while my dad did his best to fix up the door. My uncle installed cameras and a stronger door the next time he drove in there, and he sold the place a few years later. The following story takes place on one of the worst days of my life. My crazy ex-girlfriend and I had just broken up after having a screaming match in her car. She basically told me where I could shove it, and left me in the rain in some parking lot of an abandoned office supply store. It was way too late in the night to call either of my parents to pick me up, and of course my sister was in a different state, so I tried calling an Uber as I walked out of the lot towards the street. I swear, adding to my misfortune, every single Uber canceled on me, one after the other. It got to the point I wanted to cry out loud and scream. I was a 15-minute walk from home. I figured to hell with it, I'd walk it. But shortly into my walk, an SUV pulled up to me. 3 guys were inside. They seemed around 30. The guy in the back said, "Yo man, you need a ride?" I figured, why not? What did I have to lose at that point? It beats walking in the rain. I hopped in the open seat in the back and thanked all of them. I gave the driver my address, and he started on his way to my house. I tried making conversation by talking about how I just broke up with my ex, tried to make light of it, but they didn't respond in the way I was hoping. The guy in the front passenger seat turned to look at me. I looked back for a second, expected him to laugh or say something, but he just looked at me with this blank, emotionless expression, his eyebrows slightly raised, mouth hanging open as if he were trying to intimidate me. I looked away, out the window, though I could still sense him looking at me through my peripheral vision. The GPS voice said turn right on the next road, but the driver turned left. Uh-oh. "Yo, I think you went the wrong way," I said to the driver. The guy sitting right next to me said, Nah, chill, man." The lack of communication in this car was really adding to the building tension. I noticed we were entering quieter, if not dead streets with few houses or buildings nearby. I was scared to say what I said next, because I knew if they didn't acknowledge it or listen to it, it meant I was in a bad situation. I asked the driver to just drop me off on the side, I'd walk, and his response was just laughter. The guy in the front passenger seat joined him in laughing. The sound of the doors locking as the car was coming to a stop was the moment I knew I had to run. I flicked the freshly locked switch back up and pushed the door open. The guy sitting next to me started yelling, "Get him," as I felt his hands try to grip my arm. I got out from the car though, and I ran into the adjacent patch of trees which sat next to the parkway. I bolted across the parkway, and yes, there were still cars speeding by at this hour. I almost risked my life passing that parkway just to escape those goons. I'm not sure if they were just trying to rob me, kidnap me, or what, but I feel like if they were trying to just rob me, they could have done that anywhere and driven off, but they didn't. And that's what scares me to think about. This was an eye-catching post made in 2014, though it was eye-catching for the wrong reason. The advertiser states that he's seeking an unpaid young houseboy that will care for him, but he had to note that he meant in a non-sexual way. He also notes that he's a 55-year-old male who lives alone with his cat, but even if that isn't slightly concerning considering he's seeking younger males to live with him, he claims to have had 3 houseboys before. This could leave one to wonder whatever became of them. The lighting, angle, and just about everything else regarding this man's picture mirrors something straight out of a serial killer playbook. These kinds of ads are the very likely ones to be leading to something far worse than would appear on the surface. This was the listing for a bed frame that a subscriber named Rich sent to me and actually responded to. Firstly, right off the bat, the ad looks a little sketchy, starting off with the poor grammar and misspellings.
Looking for new furniture at huge discounts? Shop Ashley's President's Day sale, where you can...
Next, the poster claims that he's not storing the bed frame in his house anymore, but rather behind his buddy's storefront. This begs the question, why? Also, where is this storefront? What does it look like? If these weren't red flags enough, Lauderhill, the town in which this ad was posted, has an extremely high rate of crime. Rich explained in his email to me that he comes from a very poor background, and even though he saw the red flags in his post, he was willing to drive over to the location he received after texting the number on the ad. He drove to the location at 10:30 p.m., which turned out to be a closed-down looking thrift store. He stepped out of the car with the engine still running, and he said he knew to look straight for the bushes next to the storefront, where he could easily see two men hiding. He got back in his car and drove away and reported the ad. This was an incredibly creepy Craigslist post of a man looking to start an all-female band, specifically consisting of women aged 18 to 21. You could just assume by the looks of the ad and the man himself that he strongly considered typing 16 or 17 instead of 18. The ad calls for young girls who aren't afraid of older rocker dudes telling them what to do. And apparently that wasn't the only listing this guy posted. In one picture on this separate listing, the guitars and amps can really draw your attention away from the gross carpet, messy bookshelf, and bottle collection. But in the last picture, the man for some reason thought it was a good idea to capture his bandaged up foot in frame. This was a very transparently predatory Craigslist ad targeting young women. There's a section on Craigslist called Misconnections. This section is home to personal advertisements, which arrive after two people meet but are too shy or otherwise unable to exchange contact details. Like everywhere else on the website, weird things are posted in this section, such as this ad. The ad was posted by an anonymous man who seemed to be stalking a young boy. He said in the ad, "We've met on several occasions. Well, we haven't formally met, but I've seen you. You like to wear that Mets hat a lot. I love the Mets. If you like daddies, hit me up." The post actually included two photos of the boy on candid camera, one in a grocery store and one outside in a seemingly wooded area. The boy looked to be no older than 14. The ad was taken down the same day it was posted. This ad was posted in January of 2014 in Australia during a major heat wave. Temperatures were reaching up to 114 degrees Fahrenheit in certain regions, so this ad probably seemed like nothing short of a miracle at first glance. The ad offered free ice cream to anyone in the area, claiming they were doing it out of Christian courtesy. The ice cream truck would be parked in a location that would only be disclosed to people who contacted the poster. One person did end up contacting the poster of the ad, and was told to meet up at a certain parking lot outside of Kings Park. The boy and his brother, who answered the ad, who said they arrived partially just to see if it was legit or not, did find the ice cream truck in the parking lot. But two police cars were also parked alongside it. It turned out the ice cream truck was stolen. The refrigerators in the ice cream truck were turned off and all the ice cream was melted. Who knows what they really meant by Christian courtesy? This one wasn't disturbing in the same sense of the others on this list, it's just creepy. This was an ad posted by a 26-year-old asking for a female roommate, who he would waive the rent fee for only if they were willing to create some kind of romantic relationship out of it. Being that this was a guy posting on Craigslist, proud of his openness of his intentions, it's likely he may have wanted more than just a relationship, possibly some more immediate services. There's a lot of these kinds of posts offering free housing for young women for relationships or open minds in return. In July of 2015, the FBI arrested 39-year-old Nathan Bryan for allegedly trying to solicit children for sex by advertising his babysitting services on Craigslist. Federal investigators suspected that Bryan was using the ads to gain access to kids, though this wasn't enough to prove that he was guilty of anything. So the FBI posed as a father who was offering their child for sex on Craigslist. That's when they were contacted by Bryan, warranting his arrest. This was one of Bryan's many Craigslist postings where he advertised his babysitting services. It may not seem too bad on its own, but knowing who was behind this listing is what makes it truly horrifying, and that any other listing like this one could have been created by someone with completely masked intentions. This is Richard Beasley, a man who was sentenced to death for the murder of 3 men who responded to an ad he placed on Craigslist for a non-existent job. He was also convicted of the attempted murder of Scott Davis, a man who answered the Craigslist ad, who was then shot in the arm while escaping from Beasley. This is the only screenshot that could be found from the specific ad that he posted.
And that class is Bargain Bliss. Any questions?
I still don't get it.
The ad said, "Wanted, caretaker for farm. Simply watch over a 700-acre patch of hilly farmland and feed some cows. You get $300 a week and a nice 2-bedroom trailer. Someone older and single preferred, but we'll consider all. Relocation is a must. You must have a clean record and must be trustworthy. This is a permanent position. The farm is used mainly as a hunting preserve, is overrun with game, has a stocked 3-acre pond, but some beef cattle will be kept. Nearest neighbor is a mile away. The place is secluded and beautiful. It will be a real getaway for the right person. Job of a lifetime. If you are ready to relocate, please contact ASAP. Position will not stay open. 3 out of the 4 men who answered this ad were shot dead by Richard. This is another missed connections post seeking another unknowing individual. This one is much more disturbing, however, as the poster, or stalker rather, has the young girl's address. He even posted a picture of the 14-year-old girl's house. In the post, he wrote, "Dear Sarah, you don't know me yet, but I've been watching you these past 2 weeks. You are a beautiful girl who needs to be taught certain things, and I could teach you those things. I could give you all the money you could want, and much more. I can promise you nothing but an amazing life if you choose to run away with me." The rest is just both his and her personal info. Now, this ad was screenshotted by a few people before it was flagged enough times to be removed. I was never able to find more details, such as if the family was made aware of this, or if the poster was found, or even if it was just some kind of prank. This ad was posted on June 10th, 2014, under the free stuff section. It advertised a free couch in good condition that would be put out on the curb around 10 p.m. In a normal neighborhood, this would seem like a lucky find. However, this ad was posted in one of the worst areas in Detroit, and one of the most dangerous times to be wandering the streets. Not to mention that anyone living in the area that this ad was posted in would not be looking to give a couch away, rather looking to make any penny possible off of it. This was a screenshot taken of the ad by someone who came across it. There's no way of knowing if someone actually fell victim to this, but this ad just had too many red flags about it. Most likely a group of people waiting for a naive victim to rob or harm, like the bed frame listing mentioned earlier in this video. This Craigslist post was an alleged confession of a murderer who was gloating about his first killing to the people of Tulsa, Oklahoma. It said, "I wanted to thank Tulsa for letting me have my first kill. It all started here, so I was thinking it should also be my first. I was nervous as hell, but I will get over it. It was a stranger on stranger kill, so the police will have a difficult time. It will not be my last, though. Thinking about going to Oklahoma City for the next." This wasn't the only ad of its kind to pop up. In fact, there was a second one that I could not find a screenshot for, which apparently showed a picture of a victim's body and the poster gloating over his second killing. This one took place in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and while it didn't mention a link to the first post, it seemed like too much of a coincidence. This is a rather strange ad by a young man looking for a roommate. When visitors to the ad would be greeted by this picture, which looks like something taken from a horror movie, they likely would not take this ad very seriously and would never dream of taking this guy up on his offer. Now, if that intro picture isn't enough to creep someone out, some of the rules and aggressive writing underneath should do it. Some ground rules. If I ring the bell in the kitchen, it means you have to go to bed no matter what time it is. I do not like people staying up late. You may have a friend over, but if they speak too much, they must leave. I like peace and quiet. No Indian visitors. Never touch the shower curtains. If it's closed, you come and get me and I pull it back so you can shower. There's 2 other pictures, one of a dimly lit room and one with a garbage bag over a window. If this ad was legit, let's hope this guy never found a roommate. This last ad was very open about its poster's intentions, and it's titled "Cannibal Looking for Willing Victim." This ad included very graphic, blurred images that would give you a good idea of what exactly was going on to the victims. The ad said I'm going to be very open about my intentions. I am a cannibal and I'm looking for a willing victim. He even uses the word victim. If it has been your dream to donate your body as food, please contact me as soon as possible. I will not be torturing you or providing you with a slow death. Think of this as sharing your generosity with somebody else.